Learning how to be movie stars.
All right, that's a coffee. It's a coffee talk. It's a coffee talk. So we were just sitting here talking about Jason's day yesterday because he went to Disneyland, and I thought, wait a minute, we could really, yeah, Disneyland. What you said? What do your kids call it?
Disneyland.
Oh, they don't say something funny, the little ones?
No. Well,
Disneyland?
it's funny because two of my little kids don't know much because they just know of the year of the pandemic, right? So like one of them was maybe 7 months old when the whole thing hit. So
her whole life has been a pandemic.
Right. Hey, well, but we actually got in this conversation yesterday. So her and my 3-year-old, because of last year, their expectations on life is super low. So
that's great.
You go out to like the grocery store because we usually Instacart it.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, oh, look at that. Like
everything's new.
You know what I mean? Everything's awesome. So
that's
yeah.
I want to bookmark that thought because that's interesting how for them, everything new is awesome. A lot of times for agents, everything new is, it's new. Oh man, it's it's the opposite. I don't know where our mind changes, where all of a sudden everything new is not great or we're afraid of it. But
I think it probably has to do with the amount of noise. I actually had this conversation with my wife, but this is like a whole nother tangent. But, as agents, there's so much, right? If you really put it all out there, there's so many policies. There's so many, the policy jackets for each one are so long. Every carrier is completely different. Like there's so much to learn and know. So as soon as you see some sort of change, it probably feels like a lot, especially if you're in the weeds, right? Because it's just like, dude, don't change another thing. Like I'm trying to learn all this. I'm trying to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of noise.
So maybe that's it. Like you're like, I can't deal with it because
you got too much on your plate. So my wife and I were talking. Another tangent.
You don't talk.
My wife and I were talking a little bit. We do a little bit. And and I was saying it's so funny. Like back, like think about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Successful people would always they would be the people that would search out information, maybe read a lot, learn new things, and implement, and then they're successful if they have hunger and drive. Right now, it's the opposite. Like there's too much information that you get an analysis paralysis. And the next thing you know, you're not doing anything because there's so much, there's so many notifications on your phone. Like all this stuff happens at the end of the day. You're like, what the hell happened with the day? Because it just went by. So it's like the complete opposite. Like 100 years ago, no information.
None.
So you don't do much. Right. And then now too much information. I know. What's the deal with that?
Too much information. Yeah.
Too much.
You know what's interesting about that is so 100 years ago, the person who could find the information. So the person that was resourceful enough to find the information was the person who was able to then become successful. Now, it's the person who can filter through all the crap and find the good information is the one who's the most successful.
Right. And it's almost like the one that just does. If you're doing it all.
It is the same because it's the person finding the information, right? The pertinent and good information. Just it was harder to, maybe there was less, but it was harder to find. Now there's too much, but you have to sift through and find it. At the end of the day, it's still the one with the golden nuggets is the one who wins. Perhaps that's he or she who listens to this.
The golden nuggies.
The golden nuggets.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you're probably uber successful.
You gotta be.
You have to be.
You'd have to be to have the time to listen to this. Yeah, and so you're at Disneyland,
Yeah.
and what I thought was interesting about it is something that all of us, even those listening to this, can relate to. Is so Brandon, who is our general manager over at Teledudes, he went to Disneyland 2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago. Yeah, or
and
maybe
he said it was a
probably around.
nightmare. You couldn't do anything. Everybody had masks on. You had to wear a mask. You couldn't eat anything, and like you couldn't walk and eat. You couldn't do anything, right? It was like being in lockdown at Disneyland. And then you went yesterday, and you had an entirely different experience.
Yeah. Um, I think the big thing was, 2 weeks ago, masks, distancing. There was, because it's Disneyland, ultra corporate, and I'm sure that they were, waiting for the governor to say it's okay to reopen, considering how much they lose per day. Which I figured out, if everybody paid full ticket price, they would make $72 million a day in gross. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So they probably wanted to. So they're following all these rules. The rules were crazy. I mean, you could only eat in designated areas. You could take your mask off anywhere unless you were in those areas, and just ordering food and just absolute no contact, no anything. And it was very difficult for them. And then what I heard is when they lifted that day, they ripped up all the social distancing stuff and the mask. And this isn't we're on either side of this conversation. It just is what it is. It's what happened. Then I go yesterday, and they're packing us in everywhere. There's, you get off a ride, and the next person goes in without sanitizing or anything. Like,
Right.
People are stepping on the back of your shoes, and like it's just like as if, it wasn't any different than it was 2 years ago, except it was at about 50% capacity, which I haven't seen in
phenomenal
forever. So that was worth the price of admission alone.
Yeah.
We
used
went
to
on
only
Star
go
Tours 5 minutes.
Oh, that's wonderful. We used to go only when it rained, because then it would be pretty light crowd. And typically somebody would be injured in our party, so we could do the,
Yeah.
So, but that's, oh man, it is so interesting, because you're like, how does it switch from, remember, like if you go, and I'm sure I'm going to be on the plane next week. So I'm sure that they're still going to say that they're deep cleaning and all that, although who knows, but everywhere would say we're deep cleaning. We go the extra mile to make sure that you're super safe and all this. And here you are now, the kids are licking the rails of the line again, and everybody's just stumbling over each other. No problem.
So gross. Their kids are so gross. So when we did that event a couple months ago, and it was they were hardcore about, all the precautions and stuff
on the plane.
But dude, there were like chip bags and stuff in the pouches. There was garbage everywhere. There's no way that they deep, and they're like, oh yeah, they're taking time to deep clean.
Right.
They did not.
They're just selling the sizzle.
Selling the sizzle.
But
it does make you feel like, it's funny when they tell you that they're doing extra things, it does make you feel good. Okay, so here's another the tie-in with this with Disneyland. Here's another cool thing. So they listed all these rides that weren't going to be open, right?
Yeah.
This is classic Disney. They list all these rides that aren't going to be open. Well, we went there, and boom, they opened like half the ones that were supposed to be closed.
Under promise and over deliver.
Under promise and over deliver. And dude, they do it on purpose. So this is what I found out too. Lines. So when they adjust those times for lines, it'll say like 30 minutes. They always overshoot the time, so that when you see when you go up to the front, you're like, that wasn't 30 minutes, only 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Like, that's awesome.
They're controlling the flow. There's with the time, there's a supply and demand there, right? There's okay, 30 minutes. There's only X amount of people that will wait 30. They're the rest of them are waiting till it says 25 or 20. And so they can actually control the flow of traffic to those lines by putting whatever timestamps on it, you know?
That's like, true. Yeah.
There's what the one in the Disney in Florida, which I've been to one time. They have the Avatar ride, and it'll say 8 hours. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? People wait 8 hours. 8 hours.
They have Avatar at Disneyland?
Yeah, it's in the Animal Kingdom, but they're all related. It's the whole Disney world. Yeah,
it's not even a Disney movie.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That is a really cool one. It's like Star Tours, but you move around, it sprays stuff in your face, and it's an immersive experience.
You like that? Okay,
yeah, it's fun. Yeah, the spray in the face not as much. I know that's one of your preferences, but
that's what I already did that to you.
When I turned it around,
you tried to. But I love that. So I love the under promising and over delivering because it changes. So yesterday we were all so excited about a couple of the rides that were open, and I was just laughing. I was like, it was so funny because if they didn't mention anything about what's going to be open or closed, we'd probably be like, oh, this is whatever. Right. But they actually made us talk about how excited we were and how happy we were that these rides were open and all this stuff just based on that.
Yeah. And it's in alignment with what we were talking about in our sales meeting this morning. Same type of thing. You know, you can run through the coverages and say, I got you for 100, 300, 100 for property damage, blah, 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 blah. Go through it all. Right. Or you can actually sell the sizzle on it. Hey, look, so I'm going to offer 100, 300, and let me go through what that is, blah, 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 explain it real quick, because you don't want to give them too much of an education because they don't want it. But, maybe give them a little bit of understanding. Yes. And then I have I'm recommending your property damage. And actually, look, you qualify for our 200,000 of property damage, which is 5 times what you have now. 5 times. 5 times. Like, just hammer it and then move on to the next thing. But them hearing, like, they're not going to hear anything, right? They don't hear anything that you went over. They heard a bunch of blah, blah, blah. They're bored. But when you kind of go back through everything, they remember a few tidbits. They remember 5 times, right? 5 times the coverage, or you qualified for. People love to qualify for things, right? So it is all in the delivery is what creates the experience and increases that likelihood of them saying yes when we get to the closing of the deal.
Yep. So what are a couple of those things that people like to hear? I would say one of them is something that creates status, that raises their status.
Yep.
So anything that's VIP, you qualify, they're able to get something that very few people are able to get.
Sure.
Those kind of things will always help sell.
Yeah. And we were talking about this. I came up with this one this morning, where you can pause. You can say, hey, I'm pretty sure that I'm able to qualify you for the 4 times the property. Hold on one second. And then like a little pause. And if you really want to give some effect, then I guess you could look the other way, but they can't see what you're doing. And say, I'm checking with my manager here, or my in-house underwriter, whatever you want to title the person. I'm checking with them. Yes, she's giving me the thumbs up. As long as we were able to bind this today, we're going to be able to offer that 4 times the coverage. Isn't that awesome? Right? Then throw a tie down on it and get them to say that it's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. Hey, hold on. Let me check with Miguel. He's our in-house I got it. Miguel. Yes. He's giving me a thumbs up.
It's like deal or no deal. The banker.
Deal or no deal. Right. Yeah. Deal or no deal. The banker is in. And we have a recommendation on this policy right now. We have a recommendation. It normally isn't flashing recommendation on my screen, so I think that we probably need to move forward. Who do you bank with?
Yeah. And I was just talking to one of our agents too, and we got to stop after this. But I was saying it's funny that when people go, people go through their sales cycle where it's like, oh, they're hot one minute and they're not the next, right?
Hot or
Usually
not.
when they're not, they're usually in kind of desperation mode. So they're not having fun with it, doing those kind of things.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're
Right.
just like, oh, like they almost like seem pushy and that they need the sale. And that is not attractive.
No,
it's just like dating.
breath. Commission
Yeah.
breath, man. They don't want to.
Nobody wants a desperate person to be with.
No.
Right.
No.
You want the person that's like almost unattainable. So those kind of things are huge for that. And when you're able to do that, and when your whole sales team is in that mode, it's so much fun. And when you're in this like scarcity mode where you might not make it and your sales suck and all this stuff, it's a very horrible place to be in. So if you want to elevate the culture, like you got to change that mindset there.
Yes. And I mean, that's the whole point of buying so many leads and sending giving them to the telemarketers, teeing everything up, because the more opportunities that you can just present, then when they get sideways, because there's those down days. And if you can help navigate that mindset that the producers have with, I'm not closing anything. It's like, look, the last call, it's over. It's a brand new one on the next one. And you have, X% chance of making it happen. Just stick to the basics. You got to stick to your basics, but have fun on the call. You got to have fun with it.
100%.
I love the, let me check with my, or whatever, like all of the little things to make it fun. And, it makes it a good time.
That's right. And
is it a
coffee talk?
That's a coffee talk. That's coffee talk. Oh,
that's coffee talk. Subscribe.
Oh, yes. Oh, that reminds me.
Explain it to me.
Go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and these will pop right in there to your phone, so you don't even have to think about it. That we can make a promise of.
And that's a coffee talk.